Hello and welcome. This is a series I want to begin where I document the games that I complete, and I thought I'd start with Harvestella on the Switch. So I started this game a week ago, and I finished it around yesterday-ish, about midday, and I just wanted to share my thoughts. I'll try and keep it spoiler-free, um, but this is a game that came out about 2 years ago, back in December, made by Square Enix, and I feel like it's gone, a bit under the radar. And I've heard people talk about it online, but not as much. And it's quite an experimental game. I have some notes in front of me just about what I wanted to say. So I feel like what this game does really well as a farming game is like it doesn't just rely on farming. It has a lot of different things you can do, like the actual gameplay, the RPG, which is really cool. So you're not just farming, like you have a motivation to do it, which I think a lot of games like you don't want a horse riding game or you don't want like just a racing game, but sometimes something like GTA that has cars in on top of like the actual gameplay, as well as something like Elden Ring, how it has horse riding, but it isn't just a game about horse riding. You have the whole combat on top of it and the RPG elements. So I think that's where Harvestella does well. It does well. It takes a genre that I wouldn't usually like farming, and fleshes it out by motivating you to play the game, opposed to just farming for what feels like the sake of it in some games. I do really like Harvest Moon though. I grew up with A Wonderful Life on the GameCube. Another compliment I have for the game is the some of the graphics. Like it really has some beautiful skyboxes. If you ever played like Xenoblade, it really reminds me of that. Like I have some screenshots saved. Let's try and find some. Sadly, it doesn't have a photo mode though, so there's a bunch of UI in the way. But try and imagine that without the UI, and it look a lot nicer. But yeah, the seasons changing really adds to that, and I was a huge fan of how they did that. Like look at that, like, that looks really impressive on the Switch. It's in handheld, lower resolution. So that's a huge compliment I have. It has like Xenoblade-esque skyboxes of these really cool areas in the background that you can see from far away. I'm a huge fan of that in games. Going back to the farming aspects of the game, I like how you're not really punished if you're not into the farming. Like if you wanted to, you could just fish and get loads of money for fishing, and just use that to buy equipment and to upgrade stuff like your weapons. So that's really cool. So if farming isn't for you, you could really just brute force the game. Um, I do have one criticism though. Um, I like how they did the economy. Like getting money is quite difficult, but if you die each day, you have to like pay a fine or pay like a toll, and it gets higher each time. So it can, I think it caps out eventually, but it can get pretty high. Like it gets in the thousands. Um, so yeah, that can be a little rough, like the punishment. But you can save scum, which I know sounds kind of dumb, but if you wanted to, you could just reload a previous save and avoid losing money. You'd lose a bit of time, but that's it's one of those questions, one of those philosophical questions. I've not gone too much into the story, but I will give like a spoiler-free kind of opinion on the story. Um, this game, it gets more sci-fi as it goes along, which is cool. So you go from like farming to this very primitive town, and you'll eventually get like this bigger scope as you go along, which is really cool. This game is very like unconventional. It really messes with what you think will happen next, which is really cool, especially for like an RPG. As much as I love the genre, it has a lot of tropes. Um, so that was cool, getting more science fiction there with everything. Um, Another aspect is the actual gameplay. The dungeon exploration is really fun. You don't really have to you don't really have to listen too in depth to the game, so you can just watch something in the background and play whilst you're watching, I don't know, like a video or YouTube or listening to music. It's very REM. It's very relaxing. Um, and because of the day cycle, you can't tackle a dungeon in one go. So you'll be able to like build ladders or like make little shortcuts as you go along. It's very genius. It's very impressive how it goes about that. I was a big fan. It's a little similar to Atelier, if you know that game series, but it's not as like those games tend to be more laid back. This one still has much more of a world encompassing plot without saying too much. I will say one thing about the story, like another thing, is the question you are given. It's really cool. Like the whole moral dilemma of the plot. I'm a big fan of that. I really like taking screenshots of games. As you can see, I have loads from Harvestella. Um, yeah. In terms of performance, I'm not really a big performance guy. I like to get the most out of something, but if a game runs at 2030, I'll just put up with it because it's nice to have higher frame rates and resolutions, but it's not a requirement. So in terms of performance, it looks a lot better docked than in handheld. But as I've said before with the skyboxes, they look really nice. That's the wrong game. Some of the closer assets, like the character models and that, aren't too detailed. But I think because of the art style, especially, it gets away with it pretty well. Um, the character designs kind of remind me of Bravely Default, but a lot more taller because they're kind of chibi in those games. Whereas these characters, they still have the same kind of dull look to them, but without being too in depth. In terms of actual performance, I did have a few frame rate stutters here and there, but eh, who cares? It is quite a fast paced game, but it's not too reflection heavy. The combat's very different compared to most games. I guess the closest comparison is like the Yeast games, where it's you have a party of three, you go in, and you take out enemies in real time, like an action RPG. You have like cooldowns you have to deal with. A little like Xenoblade, but without the whole, break topple launch. It's more just about dealing as much damage as you can. So that's good. But yeah, just a few closing thoughts on the game. Um, Apparently, it sold decently well on Steam. I saw a headline about 72 million, which I think that's pretty good for a more experimental game. I know Square Enix has said how they want to kind of, you know, I don't know what Square Enix has planned, but they don't want to be like first party exclusive, and they want to tackle more major games. I hope they still make smaller releases like this, and the HD 2D games, because um, I feel like especially RPGs, they need more new IPs because around. But like, there's a lot of games that don't, a lot of long running game series. But I'd love to see more like more minor, well, not minor, but just more side stuff. That'd be nice. Um, so yeah, that's like what I hope. I just hope this game like sold well enough because I think it could do with a sequel. Without saying too much, the game feels like you could add more to it afterwards. Uh, And I do feel bad too because you can tell this game's on like a more lower budget. Like there's no voice acting, which I actually enjoyed. Because sometimes there's a joy to that, like having your own voices for the characters. There are in combat, but not in the dialogue sections. So there's that, and there's a lot of stilted animations, which I don't mind because I don't know. This feels kind of like a 3DS game in a way, like the Bravely Default kind of vibes. The character designs that I haven't mentioned, those are gorgeous. I don't think I have a lot of those on screen, but like um, the 2D illustrations, especially for the party members, I don't think I have a lot of screenshots of that. Oh yeah, Hein here. Like just the colors, the use of colors and the softness. I think that's done really well. Um, so yeah, I'd like to see more from this game, and I hope this video was well done. So yeah, those are my closing thoughts on the vid. I'm hoping to make this into like a sort of an amateurish series where whenever I beat a game, I want to upload my thoughts and into a video. So I finished Harvestella. That took 6 days, and playtime wise, I actually don't have, but I'd say it was about 50-ish hours. Um, like I can't. It doesn't say when you load. It just says the date, the actual date. Um, so yeah, that I'd say it's roughly for me about 50-ish hours. There's a ton of side content though, especially with the farming aspects and the social aspects. That you can interact with your party members and have a lot of scenes and hear about their backstories. So yeah, that's it for Harvestella. But I'm hoping if I do make this into a series, the next game is a huge departure. It's not even the same anything, but it's Red Dead 2. I just started it yesterday, and it's pretty good. So yeah, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll make a follow up